For itself, and in itself for another, the subject knows the object, and learning and understanding is negating what we thought we knew. An object or an in itself puts the desire in motion. For itself and desire are both Hegel terms. For itself explains that mind is something alive and self-conscious. What is for itself one moment is then an in itself the next, known as axial rotation. Desire. Desire is self-consciousness. In itself puts the desire in motion, while for itself has the desire. Hegel believed that only living things have the capability to desire, living things that are self-conscious and that exist for themselves, not others. Habitual restraint. Habitual restraint is a Rousseau term. Habitual restraint suggests that women will always be in subjection to a man and men's judgment. It states that women require men in order to live a good life, and the woman will never be free enough to express her opinions or thoughts above a man's. She is there to be gentle, caring, and there for whatever the man wants. Negation. Hegel specifies his way of thinking, negation. It is his way of thinking, similar to contradiction. Hegel states many different relations and differences in his arguments. He describes the coming to be of all human knowledge using a dialect method of explaining, going back and forth between opposites. Paper. Hegel talks about history and what happens in time as freedom in his phenomenology of spirit. He believes that physical things are not so real. Hegel is into talking about the self. He explains that the self is social and has to be conceived through the other. Hegel states that the mind is something alive and self-conscious. He says that life is a whole, and we each are individuals that are part of a bigger picture, life as an infinity. There is the for itself and in itself. One cannot be without the other. An object that is in itself puts desires in motion. The consciousness for itself is that which has the desire to begin with. For Hegel, life is a sphere of spheres, based on an axial rotation. Everything needs everything in order to work correctly. The for itself and in itself have what each other need in order to work. One self-consciousness is possible when two individuals are thinking about the same things. Hegel talks about self-consciousness and knowledge using a dialect method, different from other philosophers we have read before. He explains by going back and forth when trying to understand and reason with the opposites. According to Hegel, the self is always looking for recognition, which would explain why each thing has what others need. Last. Rousseau uses pathos and tries to get to the emotional side throughout his arguments. Rousseau promotes misogyny, but it is well hidden. He believed that in order to become civilized, there must be a social contract between everyone. His idea was that society works because of how nature is, and nature is that males are strong and active while females are weak and passive. Rousseau claims that a woman's weakness is a virtue within them. They simply cannot help themselves. If men were weak, then it would be his own fault. For Rousseau, women may be weaker than men, but he claims that the things in women help men stay in power. He comes up with the two fictional characters, and one of the takeaways was that men and women are different, but one is not more perfect than another. Rousseau's idea was that men are there to give the woman a family, kids, money, husband, house, while the woman's job was to cater to his every need. It is a balancing game. For Rousseau, the denouement was that a man must find a woman in order to be one. In the end, Rousseau ended up defeating his own purpose. He undermined his own goals. Done.